Welcome to lesson 6 in module 2, implementing a go-to-customer strategy. We've laid a lot of groundwork for this last lesson in this module. We'll be bringing a lot of things together here, and we'll be using a lot of frameworks and tools that Scott Santucci put together as he works with strategic account teams, executives, and investors to help companies achieve their growth targets. We're going to get a little bit more detailed into this shift that happens between doing and getting stuff done and being strategic and aligning to where executives want to go. So let's jump in. Orchestrators achieve outcomes together. We talked a lot about outcomes. We talked a lot about collaboration. We talked about figuring things out. And we talked about the need to think more broadly than your role and your function and recognize you cannot control everything. We also talked about the need that you'll have as an orchestrator to enroll people to achieve together, which is really the value of orchestration. It's this idea of bringing people together with multiple perspectives so that you can simplify and do things right to drive the growth strategy. This will continue to evolve as executives start to realize and continue to realize that a lot of their investments don't pay off. And you don't want to be in that bucket of not showing clear value. So to move forward in that, you'll have to rethink what it means to bring together people, process, information, and technology. One of the things that we talk about is orchestration. And this is the first time you've seen the orchestration orb. This orchestration orb is connecting the dots, and connecting the dots around what? Well, it's not around you. It's not around sales. It's around outcomes. To drive outcomes, you're going to have to work to bring together people, technology, processes, information in a way that simplifies what salespeople experience so they can have the best conversations that drive the customer engagement and customer experience. That all sounds great, but it requires a lot of figuring stuff out because there's so much complexity that hits salespeople today. And we're going to talk about that. Now, a lot of what I share in these courses, you probably have come to realize that there's no real textbook on what I'm sharing. This might be new for you. Remember the discussion we had on herd mentality and how I'm being intentional about not following the herd. What's up with that? Well, it has to do with this idea of the shift in strategy that we're seeing and that Scott Santucci has spent 15 years working on. And that shift is moving from a go-to-market approach that companies take to a go-to-customer approach. Now, if I pause this here and ask you, what do you think the difference is? How would you explain it? In fact, why don't you Google go-to-market strategy and just read up for two minutes on go-to-market strategy. So pause the video and take the time to do that now. Go look at go-to-market strategy. All right, welcome back. What did you see? What did you find out when you did that? Well, it's probably going to range depending on what you clicked on. Go-to-market strategy is a term that CEOs use and to explain how they're building out their sales and revenue engines. Go-to-market is also what investors use. And what they expect executives to be doing is capturing market share. You might have stumbled across a measure called total addressable market, TAM, and that drives a lot of what executives focus on, capturing new logos, penetrating new markets. That language is about going to market. So what do you think Scott means by going to customer? What does that mean? Well, that's an interesting discussion because what Scott found was a lot of money being left on the table, especially in larger accounts. A market share approach is focused on responding to demand and answering inquiries and capturing more market. A go to customer approach is on figuring out what problems to solve and what outcomes to drive with customers. So let's talk about that. Here's a framework that Scott put together. On the left, responding to demand, go to market. On the right, co-creating demand, going to customer. Go to customer means moving from responding to demand and working with clients, working with them. Not just talking to them, but working with them to explore what's possible. So it's about moving from here's our product to hey, here's what's possible. Do you realize how different that is? Think about how different that is. Hey, here's our widgets. Here's our spec sheets. Here's all the stuff we can do. Versus, hey, client, what do you want to achieve? And is it possible? Now this is a challenge because a lot of companies talk in terms of their product. But salespeople, for them to sell the bigger deals, have to be able to frame out what's possible and explain your company's role in that. That's easier said than done. The next piece of this shift is moving from, hey, let's put our product in the market, let's place it in the market and define our routes to market as part of our go-to-market strategy, versus the pattern required to achieve the vision. In other words, based on the way the company is set up, based on the type of initiative, based on the roadmap, the outcome, the budget, the resourcing, the maturity, a lot of variables go into what's required to make that possibility a reality. And depending on the type of customer that your salespeople are navigating to, they have to adopt their approach. The next one is about moving from promoting products and putting out advertisements and social media campaigns and direct mail and emails, etc., and moving towards the journey, the path that the customer will take in order to turn that possibility into a reality. It's this course of action, this course of success that salespeople are navigating customers on to help them be successful. And that's a big shift from thinking about, well, let's do outbound phone calls and see if people will meet with us about our product, to let's be curious, let's be empathetic, let's factor in all the various stakeholders, help them connect the dots so that they can figure out how to even buy from us. Because a lot of customers don't even know how to buy. Then the fourth one is this idea of moving from the price to the proof. In a go-to-market model, it's about managing discounts and negotiating and holding firm on price. Go to customer is about proving that you can drive the impact you set, that your company can prove that it's able to achieve what's possible. And that's going to customer. On the left, you see the old 4 Ps of marketing. Those 4 Ps of product, place, promotion, and price come from the 1940s and 50s and are driven by capturing more market share and responding to phone calls and advertising and making the phone ring. On the right, you have co-creating demand. This idea that salespeople are selling higher to shape out a broader vision. Now, you may have heard things like, well, buyers are 75% along in their sales process before they ever pick up the phone to salespeople. There's so many people that already have their mind made up before they ever talk to salespeople. Executives already have read up and they've talked to everybody and they know exactly what to buy before they ever talk to salespeople. You may have heard those things, but remember I talked about herd mentality in the previous lesson. It's very important to understand where that data comes from. That data may be true, but is it true for all salespeople? In other words, if a company is selling transactionally and selling transactional products on the left, who is going to be calling the salesperson? Who is going to have their mind made up? Who's going to want to just buy the widget off the shelf? Well, usually that's a very transactional, lower level commoditized sale. I mean, the more you explore selling on the right side, go to customer, the more you realize that customers don't even know what to look for and they don't even know what to ask for. How can they have their mind made up and be 75% along the quote unquote buying process? And when, oh, by the way, they have no process to buy what's possible. They don't even know what's possible. And they don't even understand how to make the possibility a reality. And that data of we're 75% along the way of the sales process is very skewed to transactional buyers who already have their mind made up. And that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about shaping a vision, bringing the capabilities of your company to customers, and helping customers understand what's possible, because salespeople communicate value and they're able to have that conversation in a way that frames out what's possible, determines the pattern of success required, brings the customer on a path, and provides the right proof. So this is an example of a shift in strategy. And let me ask you, is your company built on responding to phone ringing? Is your company built on highly commoditized products? Or is there any language around trying to sell higher and trying to bundle solutions and to get to executives because you believe you have something that's more strategic? What's the answer in your company? So this is important to think through. And luckily, Scott has done a lot of work to help us understand that there are different patterns of engaging customers, and engaging them on these patterns is important. So let's talk about what those patterns look like, because there are 6 of them. There are 6 patterns that you can work with and that salespeople need to understand in order to connect the dots inside of client companies. It's important for you as a commercial enablement orchestrator to understand the strategy of your company. The strategy of your company is built on tackling a specific outcome, 1 out of 6. And so understanding which one you're going after as a company provides you an immense amount of structure and order to pursue that outcome. So if you need to refresh yourself on the outcome module, the outcome lesson, go back to the outcome lesson and watch it again after you watch this lesson, and think through what an outcome really is based on what I'm going to share with you here, that Scott calls an outcome pattern, to help you figure out if you're going to customer, not going to market. Let's take a look. All right, so let me explain what this is. So here you have a company, and on the company view, you have a lower level view of perhaps end users or individual contributors. And then up the company, you have maybe middle management, departments, divisions, executive level. So there's an altitude level in this. And then from an outcome perspective, remember, we talked about outcomes and driving outcomes. Each of these has a specific outcome that Scott has named. So starting with a domain outcome, then a value delivery strategy outcome, then a shared service outcome, a business process improvement outcome, an operational optimization outcome, and then business transformation outcome. So there's 2 things that you can look at this with, right? And so let me pause here and let you pause the video and read these. So go ahead and read these and then start the video back. Okay, welcome back. So there are 2 ways to look at this. One is for your function, your role, your function of enablement. Are you delivering point solutions at an initiative level? Or are you supporting one sales team? Or are you a shared service? Or are you improving a business process? Or are you creating operational excellence? Or are you transforming the business? This is where stuff starts getting real as an enablement leader, right? This is the reason why this is important to layer in and not put the cart before the horse. I know that's an American saying, but to not get ahead of yourself and say, yeah, we drive business transformation, right? Do you really drive business transformation as an enablement leader? Or are you rolling out initiatives that impact individual sellers? If you don't do the first one, maybe you're supporting a specific sales team. So which sales teams are you supporting? Are you supporting sales teams that are outbound callers, SDRs? Are you supporting territory sellers, key account sellers, enterprise? What does it mean? What does that look like? And are you delivering value to them? A lot of sales enablement, commercial enablement leaders are here. To elevate, it's about providing a shared service across a lot of different functions. Enablement leaders are starting to move into the space of supporting a portfolio of sales forces and also supporting, for example, customer success. And it's more about enabling the business. So these three here are oftentimes where enablement plays. I'd say 90% of sales enablement is here. Commercial enablement is about becoming a shared service that impacts and becomes part of the strategic view of going to customer. Down the road, enablement might be able to improve the entire end-to-end customer experience, but that's going to take a while. So what is a shared service? What is the value you're delivering? And what outcomes do you drive here? And so let's flip it now and talk about your salespeople. Same thing with salespeople. What are they asked to sell? Oftentimes it's, well, we have to get to the C-suite and we have to sell to CEOs and CIOs. But why? Is it because you're trying to help them optimize their operation? Or are you helping them improve a business process that includes a lot of different altitude levels in a specific department? Or are you helping them deploy a shared service? Or are you helping them deliver value in pockets or initiatives that have point solution impact? So this is a lot more tricky. And often Scott is brought in to do these types of things to figure this out, to unravel the company's strategy and translate it into a sales strategy and align sales forces to pursue it. Because there is not a lot of clarity in most companies around what's the sales strategy and how does the sales team align. This is why we're talking about and spending so much time on the difference between a siloed view where work is delegated and people coordinate to thinking more about the outcomes you're trying to drive and the need to collaborate when people don't report into you, to bring together the right mix of people, process, information, and technology. So are your salespeople asked to sell and impact a shared service as a SaaS company? Are they asked to transform? And I think that's incredibly difficult to say these days. This is more of like a company like Accenture sells business transformation. Most SaaS companies are selling a specific solution here and trying to get to moving towards more of a shared service. Very few companies can actually impact end-to-end business process today. And it's a lot around automation. I see it, and also business process outsourcing. I see some of it. And also, I see it in very specific laser beamed examples of an end-to-end business process that impacts a variety of different people. For example, a low-hanging fruit business process improvement outcome would be the end-to-end view of onboarding, which includes the role of human resources, IT, sales managers, salespeople, talent acquisition, etc., and bringing that all together across the different altitude levels to streamline the business process. Most enablement people do not go there. So that's enablement view. Salespeople can go here if you have the capabilities of as a company to tackle that. So think this through before you ascribe to and sign up for, driving business transformation. These are and then think about it in terms of going to customer, because you're going to have to figure out how to help salespeople gain traction and get incremental wins along the way, right? Remember the outcome. What's the high level initiative? How do you frame it out? What's the end state vision? Who are the impacted stakeholders? What does it look like over time? So when you put these out together, there's a lot of moving parts. You can think of it in terms of this 2x2, where you have the number of parts involved. So this is like your capabilities as a company and the services and products and solutions you offer, and the number of people that you have to navigate to. When you think about, for example, key account sellers, they have to navigate to a lot of different people, and they need to be able to drive a outcome with executives. If you think about hardly talking to anybody, maybe one or two people in finance about one or two products, they're probably going to bump into a negotiator. When you think about a company that has a breadth of capabilities and they have a lot of SKUs and a lot of different capabilities, here it's about bringing that together, bundling. You have to be a certain size company to do this. A lot of SaaS companies today are over here, where they are trying to be very specific about their expertise. And that means they need to figure out who is deciding on that, which is about value delivery. So a lot of SaaS companies are here, and exploring that and what that truly means is critical to you as an enablement leader. And it's also important for your sales teams to make sure that they understand how specific they need to get in that strategy. So why is that? Well, it's because orchestrators drive a go-to-customer strategy. You are responsible for helping enable that. You can't control everybody, but you can enable it and helping people thrive in that. So knowing what you know now, right? Knowing what you know now, how would you go about this? Take stock of where you currently are and what you're currently doing. What are some of the things that you need to do differently to activate what I just shared with you? Just jot some things down. Take a minute, pause the video, ask yourself, well, what I do differently based on what Brian just shared with me. Okay, welcome back. Now, one of the things that Scott has done over, I guess, 10, 12 years ago was to define enablement in a way that helped executives achieve these outcomes. And this is what the entire curriculum is built around, is what would it look like if enablement leaders, regardless of their title, if enablement leaders would and could help achieve the business strategy and became the orchestrator of that business strategy across all of the silos that exist in a company. Because let's face it, the way your company is organized is not how your customers want to experience it. The way your company is organized is not to the best benefit of your end user customers. Your customers do not care how your company is organized. They want the value from it. And there's been a lot of assumptions that the way that you're organized will create value, but it doesn't pan out that way. So what Scott did was in 2008, he spent over 6 months working with executives to define what was then called sales enablement, which now we call commercial enablement. So commercial enablement is a strategic ongoing process, strategic and ongoing, that equips all client-facing employees, right? So these are the employees that are talking to customers. What do they equip them with? Well, the ability to consistently and systematically have a valuable conversation. The reason why your function exists is to help engineer and orchestrate valuable conversations with the right set of stakeholders at each stage of the customer's problem-solving life cycle. He doesn't call it the buying process because a lot of times customers don't know what to buy. And let's face it, how many customers have a published buying process? A lot of buying processes and selling processes are overly simplistic and do not represent the reality that salespeople have to navigate. When you frame it out as a customer's problem-solving journey around what's possible, there are a lot of moving parts to that. And commercial enablement can help because it's over a life cycle, and its design is to optimize the return on investment of the selling system. What does it mean to optimize the return on investment for the selling system? Well, that means driving costs out and improving profitability of supporting salespeople. It's incredibly expensive for an executive team to support salespeople. And oftentimes they don't get a return on that investment. And there's a reason for that. It's because of a lot of wasted time, effort, and support. It's not the salespeople's fault. It is not the salespeople's fault. And that's why I talked about in the introductory lesson that we take a perspective of, we're not here to fix salespeople. We're here to fix the ecosystem they operate within. And by aligning the ecosystem to specific sales conversations and engineering those conversations in a way that simplifies what salespeople receive, because we understand the type of outcome they're supposed to be communicating, and we understand the type of sales team they are, and we're able to have that and support that over a life cycle, over a journey, over many, many conversations, then we're starting to enable. Because enablement is the opposite of control. And that's what we're trying to build, is a function that fits Scott's vision here from over 10 years ago. Now you might be saying, well, Scott's got this overly complex definition that nobody knows, and we can't do that, so let's simplify the definition. The definition is fine. The definition was built by executives. The definition stands the test of time. This is the definition we built these quests around and this curriculum around. The challenge is not the definition. The challenge is execution. The challenge is actually orchestrating. The challenge is actually building out the support of sales conversations. It's incredibly difficult, and it requires somebody like you to spend the time and figuring out what that looks like. Okay, so that's the definition of commercial enablement that we use in this course. So we're going to talk about why orchestrating is so difficult. We're going to give it some specific detail here. First of all, your company has to execute more customer-focused strategy. The challenge is a lot of it is organized internally, where individuals internally understand and work towards their definition of what they think should be happening. On the other end, your customers are trying to figure out how to integrate and take the right steps to achieve what's possible. And these things don't necessarily come together in the middle. You have polar opposite perspectives of what is required. And how do we tackle that? Well, we have to enable an environment that helps it be successful. For salespeople to fill this gap between what customers are looking for and what the company is providing, they have to know what to say and how to say it. What to say and how to say it. And there's a gap there. And filling that gap is a challenge because salespeople have to bridge from customer to your company. And a lot of what they get doesn't help them do it. So, how are you going to tackle that? Well, you cannot just wave your magic wand and fix everything in the company. What you'll have to do is you'll have to work as an orchestrator. And the key here is operating here in this gap between individual focus and customer focus requires people to come together and win. There needs to be a certain amount of cohesion across these dots. And somebody needs to bring these together because these are people from IT, marketing, product, sales, management, finance. They all need to come together and work together on the same outcome. And many of them don't think in terms of that because they think in terms of tasks and silos. And so you're going to have to think about, how do we get people aligned to the goal? How do we help people understand the process? How do we help people produce the right things? And then focus on performance. How do we help people not just declare the answer on salespeople? Yeah, salespeople are struggling. If they would just do what we say, they wouldn't. That's not the answer. Salespeople will get the help they need when they get, and figure out how to navigate when you engage with them. So let's take a look at this. Let's take one of Scott's tools and let's pretend and wave our magic wand that we need to drive a new messaging program. And we've elevated the enablement function to move beyond providing training, and we're starting to deliver value. And through the value we've delivered, we've started to think about and bring together a message. And that message is factored in a lot of different people inside the company. So one of the things is that Scott does is he works at that level to figure out things like, what's our message and what are we really selling? And here's a tool that he uses to do it. We're trying to sell to a VP. We're trying to help them execute differently, and we have capabilities, right? Super simple. But the thing about that I wanted to highlight here is, as an orchestrator, what if this picture is not agreed to? This is a super simple picture. And what if, depending on who you talk to inside your company, they don't agree that this is real? This is the reality. Also, what if they don't have empathy for what this actually means? And so their definition of a message is way focused over here. They're not trying to connect the dots to a VP. The message is focused on a sliver of the capabilities at a lower altitude level. How would you help them see what VPs are really looking for? How would you know? What is the difference between execution for whom? What this means is helping clients execute better, helping clients respond, helping clients innovate. What is the role of your company in helping your clients execute differently, respond differently, and innovate differently? How would you explain that? You can start seeing that the message is difficult. Now let's pretend and I waved my magic wand, and Scott has done an awesome job to define that message. Do you think people would just adopt it inside your company because they think it's awesome? Would it just be super easy to deploy that message and get everybody on the bus? Would it be super easy to help salespeople actually communicate that message? Would it be easy to have marketing adopt that message? What about product teams? Even if the executives loved it? Well, the answer to that is usually no, because human nature and the tendency of people to rely on what they've already known. So this is an example of the gap that would have to be closed as an orchestrator. How will you help drive cohesion? How do you help people see what's necessary? How do you align the strategy? How do you not alienate people? How do you help people understand that they have a role to play? How do you pilot things out so that there's a way to be successful that other people see it working, right? This is the nuance and also the challenge of changing the business strategy to go to customer and also operating as an orchestrator to bring all this together. It's to help people understand that things have changed. So to do that, in that example, here's some recommendations. You're going to have to start small and build momentum over time. You also have to keep the scope tight and not get overextended. You also don't want to bite off more than you can chew, so to speak. There will be a massive push to make it work for everybody. You'll have to develop techniques not to let that happen. That's easier said than done. You'll have to find the right people to work with and collaborate with. My suggestion is to do what you can under the radar, off the radar, to try to pilot out what works without causing a huge inspection or a lot of fanfare around what you're doing so that you can figure out what works. You want to achieve small wins that prove the benefit and enroll sponsorship at the right time. So, in other words, what it will feel like is you're doing a lot of piloting. You're building relationships with sales leaders to help one or two salespeople. Why only one or two? Well, if you cannot get it working for one or two, how are you going to get it working for everybody? Sounds counterintuitive, right? I mean, the ask is to get it to everybody, but the outcome says you have to get it working. So how will you pilot it out to get it working? How do you help set and manage expectations? How do you enroll people that you don't have and that you have to in a way figures it out as you go so that it will work? That's the value of orchestrating. So to get there, you'll want to build momentum. What you see here is this guy working by himself, and he's got stuff to do and he wants to activate this. How is he going to do that? There's complicated things that he needs to do, and there's a lot of things to get done, and there's strategic and there's tactical, and there's work that's very much known and simple, and there's work that's more complicated. There's focusing on what really matters and focusing on what we can control, right? How do we juggle all this stuff to take the right kind of actions? Well, one of the things to think about as you're activating is you're going to want to complete tasks and get them done. But if you end up in a space where you just keep completing tasks and completing the order, you're going to find that you are just communicating when things are done and when they need to get done. And it's a lot of coordination. If you think about tackling something that's more complicated, you'll be asked to coordinate a bunch of initiatives. And we talked about that in the last lesson. It's this idea of get stuff done, get stuff done, get stuff done. Communicate, coordinate, communicate, coordinate. What you'll have to do is and take some FSO time, right? We talked about that in the last lesson, but take the time to figure out what kind of conversations matter and calibrate with other functions to help them understand the types of conversations that matter most to the company and understand what the customer conversations are with salespeople. And then also you'll have to figure out across the ecosystem how you collaborate and bring together a lot of different people because no one group has the single answer. Remember, clients are building the value or buying, they're buying the value of your company. What you'll have to do is you'll have to build and assemble the right capabilities from across the ecosystem in order to make it work for those customers. That means you have to start small. Start small. You cannot just redo the whole entire orchestrated view. You'll have to make it work in a very small way. So be intentional about your FSO time. Be intentional about innovating and figuring stuff out and engaging in the ecosystem. Be intentional about understanding the conversations that need to happen and calibrating with other groups. You should be spending way more time on collaborating and calibrating, way more time on innovating to get to what's the reality, and piloting out things, and then figuring out how you answer the mail on the other stuff, the get stuff done piece. Okay. So be intentional about that. Take action. Move to something concrete on the innovate side. Don't let innovation be this ambiguous, nice to have. Make innovation your core capability and figure it out. And I'll help you do that across this curriculum. So here in this lesson, what did we talk about? Well, we talked a lot about what's happening to drive outcomes. Suffice it to say that you'll probably be the only one who thinks this way right now. And that's why I'm building this curriculum. This works. I've seen it work. I know it works. I've seen companies drive millions of dollars in growth, get acquired, et cetera, because of the growth that's happening. I've seen enablement leaders who use this and use these techniques and frameworks elevate their role. I know it works. And remember, everything I've shown you, I've used before. So I know it works. So you have to take the time to focus on the right needs and what matters most. You have plenty of room you have to figure out how to create plenty of room to innovate. You have to figure out how to be patient and be resilient and know when to say no and when to delay things to focus on what really matters. Remember the value that you said you wanted to bring to the company in the earlier lessons. Remember what it takes to drive an outcome. You'll also have to build through relationships the right type of pockets of people who will help you. Develop friends in sales who can help you tell the story. Find a coalition of the willing that's willing and able to explore what's really happening in conversations. Find people who are curious about what it looks like to be successful and don't just show up with the answer. You can also look at and participate in orchestratesales.com events. I want to explore this more, and I'd love to be able to learn more from you. So on the site, we'll be having events and roundtables and action labs that explore these concepts. So ask your questions and help me put this into action and help explore it together. Let's be curious together. This is the last lesson in this particular module. So to help you drive these points home, please take the quiz. The quiz is not super hard, but it's just a way to reflect. And I'd love to see what stuck and maybe where I could spend more time on future revisions. Also, make sure you go back and go to module 2 in your workbook and spend the time to complete those tasks and revisit them. It's highly likely that if you were to go back to what you've already put in there, that you would be updating it right now based on what you've learned. And that's a good thing, because this is about getting to the right answer. I'm not here to declare what you should be doing. I'm here because we're on a quest. I'm here as a guide to help you figure it out as you go. So go back and work on your module 2 content from the participant workbook. When you're ready, I'll see you in module 3.